Hmm. Okay, well, that's a good segue into the next question, talking about your governing style. Traditionally, you have been known to be rather forthright in how you handle things and deal with council. As you said, there could be a new variety of people that are there with very different kind of points of views and agendas. How do you feel that you will manage this new ensemble?
Well, I think the first step is to meet with each counselor individually and as groups to figure out what are their general, ambitions to do things for the city. And I'm much more mellow about the idea of it's not my way or the highway. It never was, by the way. You always had to have your group. And there will no doubt be disagreements on. Let's take fluoride for an issue because I don't know what the outcome. It could very well be that that's a four on one side, five on the other, and it's a divisive thing. But it shouldn't be the hill to die on. It shouldn't be something you say, well, we had an intelligent debate about fluoride and we decided to do it or not do it. People should walk away from the meeting, have a coffee, relax, and move on. And that's at my stage, you kick the can down the road. McKenna told me if in baseball you hit 300, that's good. Well, I would like to say if we got an agenda of half of our things done, that's tremendous. Just don't think everything has to go your way or has to be done or everybody has to agree. I think looking around the table, they have broad life experience who understand you can't win every battle.
So, would you say that over the years, then you've mellowed a little bit?
Well, I think Eric, having three daughters, grown daughters, and having litigated for 39 years and having been in parliament and faced in committee people like Pierre Poilievre, I think I've worn the scars pretty well to know when to pick battles. And certainly anybody ages well, like a good wine, I hope. And, well, I'm actually quite, in law, you don't get your way just by standing up. You have to be compelling. Sometimes you have to convince. So if I use my advocacy for something I believe strongly in with counsel, it's much better to use the phrase again to go with honey than vinegar.
Okay, sick. I had a paper slippage. Okay. Okay, well, very good. Thanks for that. Moving on now to public safety. That's a hot topic that generated a lot of questions. And one that's sort of a common one is, what are your ideas to kind of help mitigate the rising drug crisis and sex trafficking in the BIA area? So basically St. George to Main Street, Chateau Moncton to Vaughan Harvey.
Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to morph it with one of the questions that's coming about dealing with crime and whether we'd look at changing police forces, because I think they're very integral to each other. Um, I'd start with the idea that we don't have enough police presence. And I would start with the statistic that in 1999, yeah, 98, 99, we had 158 police officers in the Moncton police force. And then nowadays we have, depending on the figures, about 179 RCMP officers for the three communities. And we've grown from about 82,000 to 101,000. Those figures are not good for us. It's just not enough cops. The other stat that's important is how many police officers per 100,000 compared to St. John, Halifax, Fredericton, etc. And we're very low. Added to the recent brouhaha about the shortage of RCMP officers across the nation because of needs elsewhere, and the fact that you can vote for more police officers, but you mostly won't get them, has led me to the conclusion, and most people I talk to the idea that we have to at least look at the idea of having a municipal force like every other community that we are surrounded by. We're the only RCMP municipal force east of the prairies, as far as I know. So that would be number one. Number two is with a stroke of the pen, the provincial government can make peace officers under Section 2 of the code of our by law enforcement officers, peace officers, safety officers, and that'll give them a lot better perception than they do now because they have limited powers. And
Mm-hmm.
they can, incarcerate people, they can move them along, and they're a presence, and they're a lot more affordable. Thirdly, the mental health court just started, and that would take a lot of people who are suffering from some mental problem that causes them to do crime or have addictions or whatever, to have a period where they might be ordered to be assessed and won't be as arduous. Current system now requires doctors and travel to Campbellton. The mental health court is designed to not have that revolving door of already sick or addicted people come back onto the street, sometimes go back to the victims that they were charged with accosting. I know that for a fact. So those things have got to help. And finally, the Hicks Wishart report says we should have a 30-bed facility for observation or treatment. So the issue is threefold. It's crime prevention, because there are, parmi this group here, there are active criminals. And I think it's in the reports, they've been using the population of the vulnerable, some of whom are addicted or mentally ill, for the furtherance of crimes. And that's got to be ferreted out. CCTV is a really big tool. Don't know why it hasn't been used more, but now we're talking about it after 14 years. Wonderful. So detection and deterrence from the police officers, but also compassion and treatment for those who are afflicted. I think you could get, what I understand the stat to be, 550 on average people are chronically homeless. In other words, they choose the street over anything else. Partly what? There isn't anything else? Okay. St. John just got 70 some units with, I forget, $30 million, I think, of federal money. We didn't do that. 73 units is not 550, but it would help. And these other factors have to help. So I think everybody's interested in the actual numbers, because there's perception and there's reality. But if you go to 1,000 doors and 800 people say, there's a problem downtown, there's too many people in the street and not enough police, I'll take that poll over any Ipsos poll, right? I will, and I think it's there. So people say the crime stats are down, nobody's reporting them, or that everything's great and the presence is good. Well, if there's more police presence now, it's because of this election, as far as I can tell. There may be more foot patrols down there, but it's because people started, getting upset about it, talking to their existing councillors, talking to the candidates, and lo and behold, the last piece of this is the RCMP are like any other agency. They have a customer, and the customer is the citizens of Moncton. They should try to make those customers happy. I think they largely do, but they also realize that if the public were not completely in favor of them, we're going municipal, they'd sharpen their game a bit. Can they pull troops off to do minor thefts of a garden hose? Maybe not. But the fifth time that somebody gets broken into on, I forget where, Arlington or someplace, and they took an electric lawnmower and a chainsaw, that's serious crime. And why can't that be phoned in and dealt with? Well, we're too busy with serious crime downtown. The other point is who's patrolling the streets on traffic? I was at a street where the people zooming everywhere was totally undetected, and where are we? Like Wyoming in the 1880s? The speed bumps are being used by young kids as thrills. I saw a guy, with the tinted windows and all that, speeding over a speed bump, is like speeding up over a speed bump. So I think we're way behind on effective policing. We're way behind on public housing for people who need help, and we're catching up, thankfully, with respect to the mental health court and other agencies. So things are not all grim. But imagine this, Eric. You're out in Ottawa or Toronto or something. You're with a bunch of economic development people, and they'll say, I was thinking about putting a plant in Moncton. Oh, yeah. I heard good things. I was up at Apex, and boy, they're doing good stuff. I'd like to build a plant next to them. Well, how's your crime rate? Well, it's down, but people say it's pretty bad. And how's your rate of poverty? Well, we're at 21% when the provincial average is 17. How many people in homes? Well, 550. And do you have an adequate police force? Well, not really. It's not a real sell. It's not a real sell for just people wanting to move to Moncton. Second fastest growing city in, Canada. Richest and biggest city in New Brunswick. Highest rate of poverty. Most people on the street. It's not working. It's gotta be better.
There are various levels of government, of course, as you know, that are responsible for different things, and some of the things you've mentioned are federal or provincial. With the RCMP, the city's not able to direct them operational in any way, shape, or form. So what do you think you could do to encourage them to open up dialogue and/or with the province, say, for example, to help with the peace officers, changing the definition?
Peace officers got to be the easiest I've talked to, and other than I said, well, we don't have the training. I think a strong council would just say, get that done. Just sign the law, get it done. That's easy because we already got the people there. On the other issue, I disagree that there can't be pressure to bear because we have representatives on the CPRA. I met with a couple of them, and they could put pressure on the police to there's a difference between policy and the effecting of policy, and people often fall on the second part and say, well, you can't get involved in the day-to-day operations. Okay, let's make it a policy that there be a downtown foot patrol or a policy that there be a traffic unit. You tell us what it will cost. That can be done. That's been tried to be done. And my message to the leadership of the RCMP, which until recently it seems to change quite often, is do these things because we're the client. Pat Gillespie stood up at council. Somebody said, what do you expect us to do? And he said, you're paying them. Stop paying them. So I don't believe there's nothing or little we can do through the CPA. And also the threat, and it's not a threat, it's like an assessment of reality of going a private municipal or a private municipal police force has to be real. Here's another thought I've had is that if you're the RCMP sitting in Ottawa and you have these problems staffing multiple RCMP detachments across the country, and somebody came to you and said, well, we can free up 179, by getting a municipal police force, they might not be that opposed. You wonder why the RCMP are in the municipal police business, really east, as I say, of Thunder Bay, in Moncton. Like, why is that of interest? I think I know. It's a great place to live, and they have no problem. I hear this anecdotally of getting RCMP people to come here. Now, maybe it's because, boy, I don't want to pick on a name place, but Kick-and-Jaw, make it up, Kick-and-Jaw, Saskatchewan, near the arboreal forest line is not as attractive as Moncton for a family. Could be. And we're bilingual. Could be. But same attraction there would be an attraction for people who want to be part of a municipal force. So to be determined, but I think the voters listening to this would get the idea that I personally would be very much in favor with looking at it because we haven't looked at it for a number of years.
It's very difficult to know, too, just how many people are available. I know that the RCMP has slightly different rules that you can be on extended leave. And I know that Councillor Butler has asked on different occasions if you had to call everybody in and ask them, what he said, put on a gun, how many were physically capable of being out in the cars like today. And there never seems to be a real number. And if we do get a number, it's like 130 something from what I last recall. That could have changed a lot, but that is a far sight lower than the official number that's on paper. So that whole, it seems to be a bit of a quagmire as to hard to know what to change. We don't know where we're at.
Well, I agree. I adopt those words as part of my interview.
Too late, trademark. Okay, well, let's talk about prevention then. So if you look at, someone had sent in I didn't check the stats, so I don't know, but they said roughly 55% of the people who age out of the welfare, not the welfare system, but foster care, that they end up at 19 years old, aging out, and then they really have no skills or somewhere to go, and that kind of exacerbates the problem perhaps of homelessness for some. Would you consider looking at people in that predicament and finding work for them in the city and jobs that they could do?
The answer is yes, and the answer is I don't know it isn't already happening. I had the pleasure of having a tour of Enviro Plus. It's a business in the industrial park. So they do that. Yeah, they do that. And I think a number of agencies, look at people because the involvement of social development is quite key here, even though the guardian or the watching over ends at 19, the age of majority in this province. There's quite a handoff by very overworked and very conscientious social development people to see who fits where.